Welcome to So You're Kinda a Big Deal, a weekly podcast deep diving into the lives of emerging and established tattoo artists. Listen in as we dig into origin stories, industry hot topics, and what it takes to survive in the world of tattooing. This is Tattoo Shop Talk. It's funny, it's crass, inspiring, and sometimes we get it right. Join your hosts Shawn, Hedley, and Dave Allen every week as we host a new guest. The True North Strong Tattoo Book. This is a massive tattoo encyclopedia of Canadian tattooers. 350 pages. It's an 11 by 17 coffee table format. Shawn and Dan worked tirelessly to get this thing out, and sadly it never made it to print, so it's available for free download at theholdfastsocialclub.com and championtattoo.ca. The Holdfast Social Club presents So You're Kinda a Big Deal with your hosts, Shawn, Hedley, and Dave Allen. To open up, it's going to be a long one.
Trying to get Don to open up. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, Don doesn't like to talk.
Dave's gonna get you to go real deep.
Yeah.
I'll get into the mushrooms over here then. And
Oh, I'll be right back then.
that would be a fun podcast.
I will be in Kelowna in a few weeks. I'll bring some with me.
Oh, there we go. We'll all be there, I guess. Yeah.
Wow. You got to drink water at some point in the
day. Oh, crazy. Cool. So we've tried to do this how many times now?
This is our 4th.
13. Okay. Okay, four times.
Oh my God. Technical difficulties and fucking broken computers. And
yeah. Well, that's, what happens with old white guys.
Yeah.
We just ruin everything.
Oh, cool.
4 times a charm.
4th time is a charm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really excited for this one, Don. I think this is going to be one of those podcasts that people are like pleasantly surprised to find out about your history.
I have a history.
Oh, fuck yeah.
I turned 50 like a couple of days ago, so I have a bit of a history.
Nice.
Happy
welcome to the club.
50 years history, yeah.
Yeah, welcome to the club.
Yeah. You might as well hang it up now. No one cares. You're obsolete. You're over. You're done. Tattooing doesn't care about you anymore.
Yeah.
Or anything else.
Nothing does. No.
That's it. Yeah.
No.
Not old enough for a discount, but too old to
to
be cared about. Yeah.
We can't even build like submersible submarines anymore if we wanted to. No.
That was a technology problem. Old white guys in technology. We're proving that every day.
No,
doesn't work.
they specifically said that they didn't hire boring old white guys for the job. Except that the guy that owned it was a boring old white guy.
Yeah, totally. All right.
All right. So you're kind of a big deal, Don. We're glad to have you on the show. Tell us who you are.
Don Petersen. Yeah, I live in Canmore, Alberta. I have for a long time now. And yeah, I don't know. What's
your
me.
shop? You own
New World Samurai. Yeah, yep. We're like 20 years. This coming year will be 20 years running.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah, and in the same location. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we've always had the same view. It's just got bigger as we've taken more of the space. And
yeah, your shop is humongous.
It's yeah, we like to stretch out in here, you know, like
oh
a
my
little bit of breathing space. Yeah.
Yeah, you could have like a yoga class and a CrossFit gym in there all at the same time, and they probably wouldn't notice.
we've had a band or two. Yeah, we've had some yoga in here. Yeah, we've had DJs in here before. Yeah, we've had all of that.
Amazing. So we always ask people how they got started in tattooing, and you've told me this story before, and it's fascinating. And maybe before you get into how you got started in tattooing, maybe you need to back it up a little bit to give people a little bit of idea of what you were fucking up to back then, because it's not your typical.
Okay. So let's see, where do I? So I guess I've got a background in snowboarding. So I had opened a snowboard shop in Ontario. Before that, I had traveled Europe and lived in Europe for a couple of years. And then I lived in Vermont, and then I got sick of Ontario in between all my trips and stuff. So I took off and came out to the Bow Valley, which I thought was just going to be maybe like another overnighter or another season and out. But it ended up being home, ended up staying here. And I wasn't a tattooer yet at that point.
So what year did you move to Canmore?
I moved here in 96.
Damn.
So I was here in 96. So in 96, I snowboarded for the season. And at the end of the season, I got a phone call from a friend down in Guatemala. And just a buddy I went to high school with, and he had happened to move to Guatemala, and it was the first I heard of it. But he's like, "Hey, you should come to Guatemala and like serve beer at my bar this summer," So I was like, well, yeah, why not, and took off to Guatemala or to Mexico, and eventually made it to Guatemala.
Did you drive down, or did you?
This time I flew into Mexico City, DFA, like at like midnight or something, and not ever really being down there at all. Like left the plane, like the airport, like fuck it, I'm gonna go to Guatemala, from Mexico, from like the biggest city on the planet, in the middle of the night, like totally, and I get in a cab and start, like blasting all over the city, and somehow I made it safely to a bus that got me out of the city in the morning. But that was a whole nother story in itself, right? So I made it eventually. I took buses and I got to Guatemala, and then got there. My friend's bar wasn't even open, and
like not open, like it was under construction, or it was.
It was, yeah. I guess he had started to build it. From what I thought, it was built. I thought it was an up and running gig, and I was like, sweet. I've been snowboarding all winter, having fun, and I'm just gonna keep having fun, and headed down to Guatemala to go have a good time, and I did. I mean, I got there and I made lots of friends and had fun in Antigua, Guatemala. But he ended up saying, I'm out of here. I'm going to Denmark with my girlfriend. My bar's not open. He gave up, and I was like, well, I'm going to be broke in another week or two. So I'm like, well, why don't I finish opening your bar? At that time, I had made a lot of friends in the town there. Um, there was a couple of girls who owned a bar across the square from where we were. And I took them on as like my partners in the business, right? And I finished building it and I opened it up and lived there for the winter, or for the summer, not the winter, for the 6 months off of snowboarding kind of thing,
Gotcha.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and it should have been longer, but I got sick of it after a while, right? But within that 6 months, like the main clientele for the bar it was like artists, and like it was the art community is what I kind of tapped into there, and all the European crowd. I don't know. It was a good time. We were the busiest bar in town by far, and we ended up being like the most popular spot to go, like bar to go in Central America that year, and I was broke the whole time, but everyone thought I was super successful but I got nailed with all of my buddy's debt.
Oh, fuck.
For all the things that he had done, whatever. In the long run, it worked out. It was just a fun time. And within that time period, I had made a really good friend, a guy named James Collier. I don't know if either of you guys have ever heard of James.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So James had a tattoo studio in the back of the same building that I had the bar, and he had a really, he had an ongoing tab. He had I had a good connection with him as a bar owner, as a friend, as everything. Anyways, I was bored being a bar owner, and so I was always looking over his shoulder and building needles with him, and just doing all that stuff for fun, like hanging out with him. And I was just by default learning about tattooing, right? In that time period, I was like connecting with all these other artists, and we were painting and drawing in there. The bar was like hopping, people dancing on the bar. Like, I mean, it was crazy. It was a crazy bar, like because it's like in a town where the rich kids are crazy rich, and the poor kids still hang out in the same bar. You know what I mean? And so I'm checking guns behind the bar like every night, like having to pick. Like it was a big experience, like a really big experience.
Well, Guatemala
Um,
has been known for its safety.
no, and that's it. Like, so all my like Luisa and Bianca, all their friends were like these upper class kids that they went to school with. That you'd go to their house in Guatemala City, and it would be like an entire city block would be their house. With like tennis courts indoors and massive water fountains, and some of them fly around in helicopters and shit. Like it was wild, And then on the other side, um, like hanging out with all these people who are like street gangsters and stuff, because they all want to hang out in the bar too, right? So you had to get sort of wise with everybody, and it was fun, Like I mean, all in all, I demanded respect from the whole group, and the gangsters saw that I took the bodyguards' guns, and so the gangsters gave me theirs too. I'm sure I didn't get them all the time, but I got most of them back behind the bar. It was wild, yeah, really, really wild time. So, anyways, in that time, I was hanging out with James all the time, and it got to the point where I ended up building a machine. Of course, I was building needles and all that, and I got curious and started tattooing my leg, as you do, especially back then, and then James had such a good bar tab with me by the end of my stay there, when I called my buddy DJ to come back and get his bar back and let me the hell back to Canada to go snowboarding. he he gave me a bunch of gear. I earned or he paid his debt with you know a bunch of tattoo equipment.
Nice.
So and of course I didn't end up bringing it all home and had to buy some when I got home, anyways. But got me sort of in the door. I wasn't really a tattooer at that point. I had scribbled on my leg a little bit. And when I got back to Canada, I was like snowboarding. I wasn't really tattooing. I was hanging out. I was wanting to at that point, but I didn't really have any solid guidance here. So it was a real slow kind of integration into it. Of course, that integration eventually got started with doing tattoos on my friends, these first tattoos that you do. And some of them were like amazing, how much skin they gave me to do these tattoos. But, yeah, I guess that's like the start, that's how I.
Were you getting tattooed at the time?
So at the time I had one tattoo from when I lived in Vermont, by this biker guy named Rebel. He was
Good
a
biker
lifty. Yeah. He was a lifty at the ski resort that we were at, and he did tattoos and his whatever that was his other job, at home kind of thing. So
he must have been a quality tattooer to have a full-time job as well.
It was a fun experience for sure. We all went up to his place, and when he was about to tattoo me, his kid comes in the room, and he starts yelling at his kid for stealing bicycles, right? And then kicks his kid out of the room, and then when his kid walks out of the room, he's like, "I'm so proud of my kid. He's stealing bikes." Like it was a cool experience, And then we actually we rode the lift free the entire season, partially because we knew Rebel, so
Nice.
he didn't let anybody check our tickets, and we never got a ticket, so we just rode. We just snowboarded. Yeah. So that was one tattoo, and then I tattooed on my leg a bunch. Yeah, and I didn't have many tattoos at that point too. One of them was self-inflicted, and then let's see, about maybe a year later, I think my next tattoo would have been, I either got I think I got tattooed by Jarrett Clarkson at the first Calgary convention.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted a Japanese style tattoo, and so I walked around, and I had talked to Paul Jeffries, but he wasn't doing any tattoos at the show. And I talked to Jarrett, and he pulled out a marker and he drew like an Oni kind of devil mask on my shin, and it was a really cool experience, really cool tattoo. Really love it as much as any of my tattoos. Still to this day, it's solid. Yeah, cool piece. And then after that, I don't know, I got tattooed, I think in Puerto Escondido, Mexico, because I kept going down to Guatemala for a couple of years in the off season, and I got tattooed in Mex Pipe, and I was sitting in, like, Mex Pipe is this surf shop that's opened up to like one of the biggest waves on the planet, where the Zicatela, like it's a super rad spot, really, really awesome beach. And there's this kid buzzing around the shop and almost running into us on a skateboard that's as big as him. and Matt Mook, the guy who tattooed me, he tattooed like this design I gave him on my stomach. And then I got
On his
tattooed
stomach in a skate shop. Sweet.
So I'm laying back like this, and he's tattooing me, and this kid's almost running into me, and these big waves are crashing. It was fun.
Amazing.
And he kept like flipping his machine and pretending to tattoo the kid with the back of his machine as the kid's buzzing around the shop. And then I don't know if it was on that trip or like one down, like one of those trips in Guatemala. I met a guy named Pluto. John is his real name. He was a writer for the AHA. He was traveling the world, and he was coming near the end of his trip, and we hit it off in Antigua, the town that I had done that bar. I'm not the bar owner anymore. Now I was helping my friend by cleaning up a different business that he tried to start and, and couldn't. So I finished making it happen. And I turned it into a tattoo studio at the same time. By this time I had done a bunch of tattoos, and so Pluto wanted to trade a tattoo with me, so it was a really cool experience. This guy who had no skin left, he had one chunk of skin left, wanted me to tattoo him. I was like, wow, that's flattering, man. And so he gave me his last chunk of skin, and he did this one for me, like just a piece from a Mayan ruin in Palenque, Mexico.
Cool.
Nice.
One of the coolest spots at that point that I had ever been, and so we swapped tattoos in there, and I learned a ton. I was probably one of the tattoos that taught me the most in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like really kicked me into gear. I feel like after I got tattooed by Pluto, I feel like I started to figure it out a little, like before that I was kind of like, fuck, I'm kind of bullshitting my way through this, but
yeah. Was he like answering like technical questions for you, or was it just you like paying attention to what he was doing?
I guess everything, it's just so interactive when you get tattooed by someone. I even like watching Jarrett when he did my shin afterwards, my tattoos got better. You know what I mean? Like what I was doing was automatically better than what I did the day before. It just went back, lit and with inspiration and ready to go, and to have somebody pull out a marker and scribble on your leg and then have this cool tattoo in the end.
Yeah.
That's a great experience, I mean, I think it's still one of the best experiences anyone could ever have, is to have like a drawn on tattoo, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So John, or Pluto, he talked about a few things like, instead of me always just trying to shade with black, I started shading with watered down black all of a sudden, I can just put a drop of water or black in my water and it'll be lighter for real. Oh man, that's mind blowing. Holy shit. Look at this, I can put ghost lines in. I can, he did the whole tattoo with a 4 round.
Wow.
I used the 4 the other day.
Crazy, like all this tribal stuff around. Yeah, I mean it's round needles work great, right?
Yeah.
Like loose round. Yeah, I mean today I was using 3. I use some small needles for sure. Fours are one that you don't see as much. That guy Rebel, going back to Rebel in Vermont, after he tattooed me, he gave me the needles and let me keep them, right?
Oh my God.
So yeah, it was classy,
You still got them?
Oh, for sure, yeah. A keychain, I think. But I looked at them years ago. I did have them after I started tattooing. That's probably when I got rid of them, because I realized how it was kind of strange to have them still. But what did he tattooed me with a single needle as the liner, single, yeah, and and a
Oh my
and
God.
a 4 flat,
Oh,
like just 4 needles flat
Yeah.
beside each other. And I'm glad I didn't try like copy, like follow
no
his lead,
shit.
you know?
Be cutting people up.
Yeah. I
Uh,
mean, James got me started at the beginning. He was doing like 7 round needles and then big 14 round, like loose ones and stuff like that. He wasn't doing any mags. I didn't learn about mags for like even until after Pluto tattooed me, you know, which is 2 or 3 years into tattooing for me.
So when you were down in Guatemala and got tattooed by Pluto, were you doing volume of tattooing? Were you at that point? Were you tattooing a lot of people?
Yeah, I would say so. I'd say well, you know, like I set up at this hostel in town there, made like a little, you know, uh, pop-up tattoo studio, we could call it, right?
Nice.
There were no tattoo studios down there. That was as professional as it could get. I had an autoclave. I had all needle making stuff. I did everything like pro, you know, like as pro as anybody could have done there. Like they're for
yeah.
sure. They're for. I don't know if there was anyone in the country. I at that time there was actually there was for sure because there was a couple of guys that there was a guy in at the lake that was doing tattoos. There was a couple of guys who knew what they were doing in Guatemala at that time, but you know it was like like everyone's making their own needles, so there's still guys running around cleaning their needles and then like hopefully running them through an autoclave again, but you know, I was building every single needle new, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and sterilizing my tubes and carrying this fucking huge cooking pot on my back everywhere I went, you know, like so I could be clean, you know what I mean? And this thing like it ended up in the weirdest places, like on like little Mayan ladies cook like wood stoves and shit, like boiling for hours.
You were
You know,
traveling.
like I
You were
was
traveling a
traveling. Yeah, I
lot.
mean, I would be, yeah, I was traveling. I was moving constant. I wasn't like really staying too still, you know, because we drove down that time. We drove this 1978 primer gray station wagon that a buddy needed out of his ex-wife's driveway. So, so we we went to the insurance company, told them we had a badass car, got like temporary insurance, and got the fuck out of town, and drove it. Drove when we picked it up, it had 3 flat tires, and or 4 flat tires. 3 of them took air, and the fourth one was garbage. So we went and got like the best spare tire they had at Canadian Tire for $20, and we threw it
Oh,
on the car, and we drove it 8,000 kilometers down to Guatemala, you know, up Bandito Alley, like all the way up through the desert.
oh my God.
We crossed at Mexicali, and we got a flat at one point. This water truck pulls over. These guys all climb off the water truck. They drive me to like a palapa to go get a tire because we didn't have a spare tire. We had one, but it didn't fit the car. It was just for show. And they run me down to this palapa, and there's just a guy wasted inside, like telling us to fuck off, you know. And he's got a huge graveyard of tires. And anyways, we eventually get a tire iron off them. They drive us back, and drive me back, and they lift the car up so I can take the tire off because we didn't have a jack. Or,
Oh fuck.
we didn't have a tire. We just took this shitty old car and drove it away. We didn't do anything to it. We had a can of spray paint that we put like blue flames down the side, and the exhaust blew off at one point, so it was the loudest fucking thing you've
Oh
ever
my
heard.
God.
You know, blasting like we didn't have to worry about getting robbed going through Mexico. We had the worst car, you know. It was
Like you'll barely see anybody like help people push a car to the side of the road nowadays. And here you are on the side of the road, and dudes are lifting the car off the
oh
ground and change the tire.
in a
Wow.
place where like, you know, this is 25 years ago. I mean, this is a place where white guys don't go,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
rattlesnakes and tumbleweed flying around. Like we ended up at like staying the night at, the only hotels were brothels. You know what I mean? So we're like if you want to stay the night, if you want to get an hour's sleep outside of this car, so we go to this, place, and we park there, and one of us stays there because obviously it doesn't feel very safe, and the other there was four of us in the car, I think. So three of us went out on the town, and we're a big target,
Yeah.
huge target walking around, and we go to a bar, and there's it starts getting a little bit messy with some drunk Mexican guys, a boxer, some guy who was a boxer wanted to fight, but actually his old man was there and jumped in and was like, I like these guys, and ended up being our guide for the night and took us like around, and what was cool about that guy is when we were at this bar and his kid and his friends wanted to get in this scrap or whatever, it would have been a mess for sure. This guy was like one of these cantina singers, like, hollering away on the mic. Like it was really cool. Yeah. And then he took us everywhere and showed us the town.
Nice.
Awesome.
Sort of town. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we didn't really sleep, we didn't even want to go back to the hotel, to be honest with you. Next day we just kept moving, and yeah.
So
story
nice.
after story
How many days
on that road.
how many days were you driving in that station wagon then? It's like 8,000 miles, but how long did you guys take to do that?
Oh shit, we stopped on that trip. We stopped. Oh, I don't know. We drove. we drove from here, like from our border, I think, to the Mexican border in a day. Like we just kept going overnight. Skipped the states, right? Oh no, we might. I think on that trip we stayed a night in San Francisco, and then we kept going. Yeah, I think we crashed on the beach one night, and then we kept going, and then and then like I said, you had to stop. Like it didn't matter what the sleeping kid situation was. You're like, fuck it, we need to sleep,
Yeah.
And then where did we come out? We came out at, like, on that trip, we came out at Mazatlan, Barra de la Cruz, Pascuales, like in that zone. That's at the end of, that's like where this ferry goes from La Paz, like the Baja over.
Gotcha.
Is so in that zone, and that's where surf started. So we started to slow down at that point. We would stop and surf wherever we could, and there was a surf spot right there.
Cool. And you tattooed the whole way along?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, a lot of the time it was just like a little shitty banger here there, like nothing super.
Who cares?
Super good. Yeah, but it was fun, And on that trip, I'm pretty sure it was on that trip, I would bump into surfers coming. When we were going this way, and there was people coming the other way that had been tattooed by like I tattooed one guy who got tattooed by Hanky Panky on that trip.
Oh no way!
So it was really it was cool. I was like learning of these. That's how I learned of Hanky Panky, from this guy. Said, "Oh, I got this tattoo from this guy Hanky Panky," and I'm like, "Cool," like it was a little tattoo like what I was doing, but better, and yeah, it was good. That was a good experience. When we got to Guatemala, that's when I met Pluto. That sold the car to a gangster that had been in prison, criminally insane prison, and in LA. I think it was from New York, but the guy's name was Max. So he ended up traveling with us. I sold him the car for $300, and and he drove it to with my buddies to uh, or El Salvador to La Libertad, which would be our next stop. It's a really, really good surf beach, you know. And I got on a bus with a friend from Switzerland that I had made there, and we met them. We got off the bus in San Salvador, and it was late at night. It's another late at night, you know. I always in these situations, but we ended up going to a bar that was by the bus station, and these like MS-13 guys decided we were their best friends. You know, I'm a tattooer, so they're like, "Oh, you're a tattooer," and then like, so we ended up like having no choice but to hang out with them the entire night. Right? There was no shaking these guys. And we hung out at the bar like pretty much until the sun came up, because there's like, yeah, we're not going anywhere until the sun comes up. And then we got on a bus with these guys. They followed us. They came with us to the beach, where our buddies had driven in this car. So you got to remember, this is like 25 plus years ago, right? And so there's no internet, no cell phones, there's no way to get a hold of your friends at all, right? We're just like, yeah, we'll see you in La Libertad. La Libertad, this is my first time going there. It's big, man. It's like, it's a city, you know, it's a city on the ocean, right? So the car was like awesome, because that car, with Mad Max driving like a crazy fucker, you know, coming into town, like, the thing was so loud with the exhaust off of it, and with those primer gray, like 1978 station wagon with the, you know, blue and white flames on it. It was really easy to ask people and go, "Have you seen a car like this?" You know, "Oh yes, yeah, that way," you know, and we found them easily, you know.
Amazing.
Yeah, amazing, you know, amazing in a city of probably, I don't know, 80. It's a lot of people living there, and good thing we did, because you know Max is there, this you know guy who had spent lots of time in prison, and was it was really rough, but a good friend of ours, so it was good, you know, and he shook those MS guys like fast. He said something to them, and they just like split, man. It was like, it was wild. It was like, all right, this guy's got some pull, you know. Yeah, but being a tattooer at that time, and you know, like, this is one of like, well, I don't know, I did that trip at least 6 times, you know, from here to Nicaragua, Guatemala, like to those places. Yeah, you end up meeting like these gangsters all the time, and you know, you learn that you can just figure out ways to be friends and
100%.
day, and
Yeah,
man,
tattoo your way out of it.
Yeah, you know, I didn't have to too much, you know, so I didn't want to hang out that long, you know, and you know, like, there's some of them, like, their stories were just not that good.
No.
So,
Not a lot of happy endings.
not a lot of happy endings. So I was like, yeah, man, you guys are tough, right?
Yeah.
We're moving on now. We'll see you. High fives.
So when did you start kind of settling down and kind of really focusing on tattooing then?
Well, I mean, I was tattooing the whole time. I didn't stop tattooing,
Okay.
right? So I at that point, you know, I think that was my second time. I don't know if that was my second or third. I don't know. Like, yeah. Anyways, I started tattooing more regular back in the Bow Valley, right? When I was home here, and there were no studios, so we were doing it, you know, out of our home and stuff like that. And but then I was on the road and down in Nicaragua eventually. You know, after, like, at the end of that trip, we ended in Nicaragua, and then it always became Nicaragua. And I ended up always sort of opening a little studio when I was there, renting a space and setting up and having it was nice to have some space. At that time in the Bow Valley, nobody wanted to rent to anybody who did tattoos. They,
Yeah.
it was really difficult to gain any kind of respect at all from a landlord, right? Like nobody, no matter, no matter if you want to rent like a big space, small, they just didn't want you in there. They're like, tattoos? That's dirty. That's terrible. That's horrible.
Yeah.
Like it just wasn't appreciated the way it is now. It was not like now you walk into anything and you say, yeah, I want to open a tattoo studio in your space. They're like, awesome. You're going to be able to pay your rent easy, like
Yeah.
they get it, right?
Oh, we love tattooing. We watch all the shows.
Yeah. I mean, even at one point in Banff, Maniki at Rude Boys talked to the landlord and said, in the summer, we're not that busy. We would like to break off a chunk of our shop and give it to Don to have a studio, and they were like, no, like, they're like, what if my daughter had tattoos, like, what if I let you do that? Then you're going to tattoo my 17-year-old daughter, and I was I was like, what about plastic surgery? Do people get plastic surgery? Yeah. Like, yeah, they get plastic surgery. Well, what's the difference? Like
Totally.
what? Yeah, and then his daughter ended up hooking up with a tattooer soon after that. And
Irony.
Yeah. So what's the difference?
Now, I know that, was it around this time that you were traveling to Europe? When did that start happening? Because I know you were.
So my trips to Nicaragua. So my first trip to Nicaragua, Nicaragua was really cool. I had started, even Roger, like the guy that I had traveled from Guatemala to Nicaragua that year. He had some nice tattoos, from Jacqueline Sporto. I think her last name Sport. Jacqueline. It's a good friend of mine now, Jacqueline, right? She does really, really beautiful tribal tattoos. She's taught by like Leo Zuleta in Maori tattooing.
Oh, cool.
Like she's like part of the Liu family, kind of. She's like an extended member. So Roger was like, yeah, you got to come to Switzerland sometime and hang out, and I'll introduce you to Jacqueline, and then I think it was the following year when I was in Nicaragua, but it might have been that year I met one of my closest friends right now, like Solomon Nagli, and he's used to paint in the theater with Mick. So all these, I'm meeting all these not artists, but these people tattooed, because Solomon wasn't a tattooer yet. He became a tattooer. He's an amazing Japanese tattooer now, right?
Yeah,
but
great guy too.
Yeah, really, really awesome guy. I learned a lot just from hanging out with Solomon before he was a tattooer. I learned a lot about like everything around tattooing, because he had been around it so much where I hadn't really,
Who had been tattooing him?
Mick. Yeah, he had like his back done at that point by Mick, and he had I think at that point he had 2 half sleeves. He was definitely one of the most tattooed people I knew, right? And he had like 2 half sleeves and this amazing back by Mick, and he had, I think, like one of Mick's first tattoos on his arm, and second and third. Like he had like Mick's progression as a tattooer, because they used to paint in the theater before Mick was a tattooer. They used to paint in the Switzerland theater, the Zurich theater, before that, and then Mick left the theater and became a tattooer from that. And then, he told me stories and showed me pictures of him videotaping Horiyoshi as Mick was getting his sleeves by Horiyoshi. taught me about Philip Liu. I didn't know who Philip Liu was, and then we met travelers when I was in Nicaragua, and they'd be like, look at this fucking skull and dagger on my leg. I'm like, that's badass. It took like an hour and it's like this big. And they're like, this guy Philip Liu did it. And I'm like, whoa, so this whole new realm just started to pop up. I was learning about all these guys, just because I was on the road just as much or more than I was back here in Canada. So I was really, I feel like I was probably learning more about that. That being said, when I was coming home, I started seeing all this work from like our tattooers, like obviously like Steve Moore and James Text was really new then, but killing it, like just, and it was like giving you something to really strive after and like, to go after, right? And yeah, of course, like all the tattooers from back here it was starting to show up in the Bow Valley, all their work around that time. Scott Valdoan, another one. Yeah, his work. That was one of my next pieces. I went and got tattooed by Scott because I was seeing all of his work coming to the Bow Valley, and it was so solid, man. It was like some of the best work going back then. Like one of the only guys that was really doing solid ass work like that,
Yeah.
Yeah. Like.
So we were talking about you getting to Europe through meeting Roger and Solomon.
Yeah. So let's see. So I ended up buying a piece of property with Roger for like $5,000 or $6,000 or something like that, right? Like this beach property. It was, again, like way back in the day in Nicaragua, right? And then it was like a little while before he how did this come about? No, I think it was okay, so that happened, but then I ended up going over to see Solomon. Solomon called me, or I called him or something like that, and he said, listen, I talked to Mick, and Mick said, if you come over, he'll tattoo you, right? And I was like, fuck, I'll see you next week kind of thing. Right? I was like, got a plane ticket, and I got my butt over there, and
we're frozen, Don. Technical difficulties. You were just saying
again.
Surprise!
I think it was my computer, maybe. I got this one off Brito. It was Brito's old computer did it.
Oh, okay, nice.
That's the culprit. Thanks.
Nice. So the last thing we got from you was that Mick had agreed to tattoo you.
Okay, so Mick agreed to tattoo me, so I got my butt over to Europe, and went to a studio with Solomon, and Mick's like, so what do you want to get tattooed? Like I was like, well, I want a sleeve.
Dragon.
I should have said dragon. I got a snake and I got a woman and a snake. Yeah, which is I saw, because I had like looked through all his portfolio. It was so overwhelming. I was just like, yeah, I think I want to have this, from you. And he actually, I did say, what did I say? I said I wanted either a woman and a snake. I think he was pushing to do like a collector tattoo, and I was pushing for like a body part, right? Like I was like, no, I want to get tattooed, like look at Solomon. I want some of that, I want to get started here, and Mick, I think he was kind of like, okay, and he'd go back to like tattooing and doing everything, and I'd hang out at the studio, and I'd be like, so what do you think? Do you have any ideas? And I'm like, yeah, a sleeve. I want to get a sleeve. I was like, and was like, a snake and a woman, like some of your choice, like however you want to do it, right? Like a geisha and a snake, right? And he's like, well, anything else? You want anything else? And I was like, well, I wouldn't mind a dragon from here down to like my knee, right? And he's like, okay, let's do the sleeve. And that actually on that first trip, all he did was just like a really simple outline of just from the elbow down of the snake, like, and it was out of a uh, uh, it was a Japanese print, that he had gone off of, and so like what I walked away with from that trip was actually a bit of line work, right? And but a really good excuse to go back, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
And a lot of hours in the shop, like hanging out and bugging Mick, so I could look at all his shit, like look at all his books and dig through all his like paraphernalia. Like he's super open, super easygoing with all of it, and really
Cool.
easy to talk to. Really, yeah, just such a genuine, like really awesome dude, and like an incredible experience. And it wasn't on that trip, but the next trip I went back, I actually got to go, like at that point, Solomon had started tattooing. And then Solomon, he took me to the theater where they used to paint. Solomon was still, he was tattooing at that point, but he was still working in the theater as well. And we got to go paint a banner for Jacqueline because, we were I was working at her shop. And it's a big thank you. The two of us painted a banner for her, and yeah, it was a really good trip, that one. Like
What?
I worked for about a month, I think, in Switzerland, between her shop and Rock. His name is Rock, and he was in like sort of the red light district of Zurich. And a lot of the tattooers that had passed through and hung out with Mick, he would always send them to Rock's shop, or like one of his friend's shop that was like a commercial, like something to open a street shop, right? And he was a really interesting guy as well. Like Rock was he had worked with Geiger. He was a welder and a piercer, and he had worked with Geiger on the set of Alien. He was the welder who was doing all this stuff. So yeah, man, just so many amazing stories hanging out with him, and yeah, and really, really cool working out of a shop because it was just so easy going, and at that time, Solomon took me around to see like Guido de Marvel's shop, and here, I'm just gonna make it so it doesn't.
I was be like, who the fuck has a landline?
We do.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I forgot you're in the shop.
Yeah. It's how I get all my appointments. No,
no.
Let's see. So yeah, he had taken me around. We went by Philip's studio, but Philip wasn't there. But Rinzing was there. Rinzing had started tattooing at that point. He was a really, really nice guy, and we got to check that out and get to see him at work and show off some of my work, And then working with Jacqueline was really cool because of all her stories, and she's got like so many from working over in New Zealand with the Maoris, like and yeah, just rich in knowledge. Like all these people that I got to bump into were just stories of all their different, their different experiences, right? Sabine was working with so I got to work with Sabine at Jacqueline's studio.
Her stuff is
at that
beautiful
time as well, and
so
she's showing me her tattoos. She had cool tattoos from Mick and Philip, like and from Yvonne, and seeing Yvonne's work all over the place as well. Like just really, really great. I sort of feel like that's when I started tattooing for real, like from that experience. Like even though I had all these other cool experiences that kind of got me playing around, I didn't really start moving towards a style in a strong direction until then,
It's crazy that that's a lot of Canadian tattooers. Our influences are mostly Canadian or American. Not
Yeah.
many of us really traveled to Europe and got that kind of exposure. I mean, obviously, Kurt Wiscombe did, but
Yeah, and I
I
would
mean,
hear of him everywhere. Of course, Mick's like, oh, I know Kurt Wiscombe. You know what I mean? Like Paul Jeffries, of course, was the first name every single time that came up. Yeah,
Yeah.
but of course, right? Of course, everyone
yeah,
is like super good friends with Paul for sure, right?
yeah. How could you not
Um,
be?
how could you know? Right? He was the Canadian tattooer. Um, yeah, and then also being in Nicaragua, I connected a little bit with, or a lot with my Norwegian friends who they also had their stories and their tattooers that they went to, and actually it's actually how I heard of Henning to begin
Oh,
with,
crazy.
right? Was one of my friends down there, Animal, Animal.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, yeah, so Animal was like, yeah, if you want, he goes, if you want a Viking tattoo, you should go to Henning, right? Which isn't the truth. I mean, Henning doesn't do Viking tattoos, right?
He probably did
but
back in the day.
I have a Danish background, and I did want a Viking tattoo, and I ended up getting one, but it was from Anthony, not from Henning, and I still don't have my Henning tattoo, and I want it badly. I really want to get tattooed. He's one of the people I want to get tattooed most by, But yeah. So it developed and grew from there, and I ended up going back a couple of times back then until I had a wife and kids, and then it kind of like stopped.
What was this? You last time we were hanging out, you were telling me about your trip to Europe where you were being cheap and you didn't want to stay in hotels, so you had a train pass and you were
Oh, that was one of the trips I went over. I just went for 2 weeks. I was just going to get tattooed by Mick. That was the thing. I wanted to get my sleeve finished. I had made a couple of trips. Mick made me go back and forth a bunch, right? I like held him to doing a sleeve on me, and he's fast. Like, I mean, he works really fast, but he didn't work fast on me. He worked slow, or not slow. He did short sittings and was like, okay, that's what you get on this trip, kind of thing, And it was like, okay, but he would fit me in like wherever I feel like I wasn't really on the schedule, and it was cool. It was like actually probably the best way I could have gotten tattooed, um, and because it made me keep going back and forth. Um, and so this one trip, I went over and I bought a train pass. I was like, okay, I'm only going to be there for 2 weeks, so I'll buy a train pass, and I'll just like wake up in a different city every day, and so like I'm not going to be working on this trip. I'm just going to go get tattooed, and I'm by myself, so I just want to waste time. And I have friends in Switzerland that I would hang out with, but I still like they all have their life going. It's better to get out of everyone's hair sometimes and just go and do your own thing, right? And so I got tattooed in Zurich, and then I got on the train, and I woke up in Italy, in Milan, Italy. I want to go to Milan, so I went to a art show there, and then like had a nice dinner, and then got back on the train, went to sleep, and woke up in Venice. And walked around and started asking tattooers in Venice if they know Klaus Furman. Because I wanted to know if I could. I tried to find Klaus Furman, but never found him. They're all like, it seemed like some of them were quite upset that I just wanted to meet Klaus Furman, and didn't seem that
and not
interested
them.
in them. Yeah, and so it was so that was an interesting one. That's another guy that I heard a lot about because of a really good friend of mine, Andy, who has like two really nice sleeves from Klaus, and then I of course got to talk with Mick about Klaus, and all this, yeah, crazy stories, man. Like the the that whole circle is stories like you don't hear anymore.
Yeah.
Um, like Mick showing his back off. It's that like Felix drew the picture for Mick's back. Like he has the drawing. It's like this mask that Felix drew, and then the whole family did the back piece.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's like everyone, Aja, like Loretta, like they all, the whole Lou family did mix back. You know, at some point somebody did the tattooing, right?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like
So
Cool.
tattoo royalty over there. It's impressive that you got to immerse yourself in that a little bit.
yeah,
Do
yeah,
you
that was.
notice a difference between tattooing there and in Canada? Like not
I think
technically, but like
I think
the
at
approach.
that time there was. I think at that time there was. I think that we have. I think that we're becoming more like that though. Like more like the way that like they had very tattooing here was a little bit, you know, if I wanted to learn something, you know, tattooers didn't really want to talk about anything at all. They you know, it was really like shut down, you know, like I remember the way I learned how to make a magnum. I went into a tattoo studio in Golden, BC, and there's this guy Fast Eddie who worked there, and and Fast Eddie, you know, he's like, oh, so you're a tattooer, bro, and he just he. I got him talking like we just talked a bunch as he's tattooing, and he said to me, he's like, so how do you make your magnums? And I was just thinking, I don't even use magnums, you know, and but I didn't say that. I'm like, oh, I just buy them, you know, like, and he's like, oh, I just like do this with the needles, and he sort of told me how he made magnums, and I just came straight home and made a magnum, you know, and I was like, I'm gonna start tattooing with this shit, man. Like this is awesome. A new needle grouping, you know, like right on, right? Probably a really shitty magnum to start, but you know, it was like anytime you could get any trick at all, it was awesome, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So you eventually settled down. You eventually got married,
yeah,
got
yeah.
kids.
Got married, got kids, which is awesome adventure as well. Like it's the best, you know. Both my kids are into art big time, and yeah, and kept. I keep going back to Nicaragua, and or have been this last couple of years. I haven't gone the whole
You know,
COVID thing, you know.
the best place
Um,
down there. You had a tree
yeah,
house.
well, yeah,
It was awesome.
that was
Lived in a
yeah,
tree house. Like not a tree house for the kids. Like this
no,
house
no,
was in a tree.
we all lived in the
Amazing.
treehouse, yeah,
Yeah.
native trees in the trees, yeah, and then you know, ripping around in our Land Cruiser,
Oh yeah.
uh, and then had a pretty cool studio set up the last time when we were there for a long period of time. That studio came about with Solomon originally. Like he had rented the space, and then I rented it with him, and then he eventually didn't want to be there tattooing because he wanted to be back in Switzerland. And I was like, well, I wouldn't mind being down here tattooing more full time. And so I did that for a little bit, but was still flying back and forth that year that you came down, actually.
Yeah.
And I was still coming back here for the majority of my tattooing, um, but I had a great setup there. So, you know, would work a little bit every week down there, and then come back and work like 2 months and worth of work in like my 2.5 weeks being here, kind of thing. You know, just squeeze it all in and be here on my own, and yeah, have at her.
So 20 years of having a shop, you must have had quite a few artists through there. I know
Yeah,
everyone I've ever met that's worked with you has had nothing but great things to say about you and their experience there. You've
yeah. Well,
got you great loyalty amongst your the people that work with you.
yeah, yeah. It was a big surprise last week when they had a big party for me. My wife brought me back to the bar downstairs. We were out for dinner, and she brought me in, and you know, like there were a bunch of tattooers here that don't work here anymore that traveled
Right.
just for the night to get here, you know, and lots of other friends, and we had like half the bar, you know.
Sweet.
It was
Very
awesome.
cool.
Yeah, and I mean that's actually been one of my biggest paths to learning is working with all these different people who I have come in and out of the studio, like they're they're you know, they all bring so much to the plate, right? Like whether they've been tattooing 2 years or 10 years, everyone's got like either like artistic skills or like, good advice for everything that and I think that that's where I've learned the most, being in the shop
Yeah.
at the end of the day, right? Like getting to work with your peers is the best.
Yeah.
You can look over each other's work at the end of the day. You can give criticism. You can, like give advice. It's,
Yeah.
it's the best.
The one thing I've always admired about your shop is that it reminds me of a lot of earlier shops that everybody that works there is all doing their own thing. So many shops, everybody starts kind of trying to tattoo the same, which is great. They all feed off each other, and artistically they push each other in one specific genre. But like your shop always seems to have just like such a just cast of characters of different genres.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Like I think that's amazing. So
it's sort of how I built it, because like I've brought a couple of people into the industry, but I didn't necessarily want them to copy me, especially considering like when Corson was the first person I brought in. I didn't want 100% copying me, because I was like, man, I haven't figured this out 100% yet, so you should do your thing. You know what I mean? Like, and
yeah,
same thing. Like when Aaron came in, I was like, listen, I can give you tons of good info, lots of pointers. I tattooed him lots and stuff as well. But at the end of the day, I want everyone to take their own, like, I want them to take their own thing away from it, and everyone brings so much more back that way. Right. And, and you actually don't end up fighting too much over who's doing what, it's like,
no doubt.
man, you do this, man. This is good for you. Right.
Yeah, totally.
Or you don't even have to say that. Like the client comes in and goes, I really just want this person to do the tattoo because they do this kind of tattoo. Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Or the client doesn't know, and they're like, "Oh, this is what I want," and it's like, "Oh, well, there's only one person here to do that.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
that person, right?"
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
and that's great.
And I mean that being said, you can learn a lot from styles other than your own as well. There's there's so much, like if you're gonna do Japanese work, there's you're doing your whole background in black and gray. So if you know lots about black and gray tattooing, it can really help out, and
absolutely,
and vice versa. Your black and gray might be a lot stronger if you simplify your shades and just make it more bold, like a background of a Japanese tattoo, right?
Yeah.
So you get these really cool crossovers between everyone as well.
Absolutely.
Like art nights, we get to have like really good art nights. They right now we haven't been having them the last little bit, but usually once they get going, then they happen. And they're dynamite, man. Like when the art nights are going, you just new ideas, even just hangouts, just chilling and being able to get everything off your shoulders and go back to work the next day, light-minded, with like easy, feeling good. And,
yeah. I know life work balance for you is really important, and I know you do a really good job of finding it. You've mentioned snowboarding, and I know you mountain bike and stuff like that. How do you find time for that? How important is that to your creative process?
I think like I need it big time. I need to have like big bursts of kind of just this and just that. I'm not really like someone who wakes up in the morning, goes, it does happen once in a while, but I don't like go to the gym, then go mountain biking, then come and do a tattoo, then go like I'll just go mountain biking for a week, and like burn off all that energy, and then I'll tattoo every single day for a week. You know what I mean? Or like it's just more the way I find a balance in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and you always feel revitalized after going and scaring the shit out of yourself, like hitting some jumps or.
I was going to say, I've been told by more than one tattooer not to go snowboarding or mountain biking with you. If I want to scare myself shitless, I should go with you. I consider myself pretty decent on a snowboard, but I don't think I want to ride with you.
Yeah. It'd be pretty amazing though that if you lived in the mountains and then you were like, yeah, I don't really do anything but tattoo.
Right? I mean, but there's a lot of people who do.
Yeah, totally.
There's
I guess.
I think that if you don't do, hiking might be your thing. It doesn't have to be snowboarding.
No, I just mean like outdoor stuff. Like if you live in the mountains and you're not an outdoor person of any kind, like
absolutely, absolutely. You're here for that.
Move somewhere cheaper if you're not.
That's right. I mean, it's so fucking expensive here.
Now, I guess. I can't imagine how cheap it used to be.
You would think you're here to get rich, but you don't. Like the money you make doesn't have anything to do with the money you spend.
No.
Yeah.
But that's it. I think a lot of tattooers who have passed through, that's what they've discovered. They've come, and unless they do have like a heavy passion for the ski hills here or for like the biking in this zone, but you can do those things in other places too,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So they come through, they love it for a while. If they don't buy a house, they're probably not going to stay.
Yeah.
There's a good chance. Although that's I mean, Jesse's been here for 8 years, I think, and Corson's back with us. He was in Golden for a bit, and he had his own shop in town for a bit. He was with me like the first year I opened and the end of it,
Amazing.
And Aaron Brown, he's moved to Fernie, but he's been back and forth constantly, and he just moved to Fernie. Since he started, he's been here at the shop with us,
Wow.
So it's like a really strong family we have here, It's really important in this shop to that's the most important before anything else, is that it feels like your home before it's anything else, And I mean, you're not even going to be welcome if we don't want you here. So which isn't difficult. I mean, mostly everyone's like nice to be around on some level, right? But like, I've never like just hired someone. The closest I've ever come to just hiring someone is, I guess, Ben Burlock, when Rob called me and said, Ben would like to come and work in the Bow Valley, and so he came and did a guest spot, and he was super cool to be around. Really,
Ben's awesome.
Really doing awesome. Like, he was super motivated, doing amazing drawings, and I was like, yeah, man, you're totally welcome to come and join us. And he was here like the week, like as soon as he could be after that.
Yeah.
And it's I mean, still he has his own shop. He has a private space now, but his wife, MJ, she works here with us, and she's amazing. We raised her as well, actually. And Ben, if his heat's off or something, he'll be here tattooing with us, no, it's a great relationship in our town, actually. Yeah. Even with the other shops, we have like a really chill relationship here with everybody. It's like it's like a big family vibe here.
Her name is slipping my mind right now. Her last name is slipping. Kim. Is she still living on a goddamn boat?
Kim.
Yeah, Kim is on the island. Kim Marks. Yeah.
Yeah, Kim Marks. That's it. Yes.
Yeah, she's out on. Is it? It's.
Oh, she told me last time I talked to her.
I know, I haven't talked to her in so long. She used to come guest spot with us at Classic Tattoo, and she was cool, and she was working for you, and then all of a sudden it was like, I live on a boat. I was like, awesome.
Yeah, she's a gypsy. She was
totally.
Even then, she was moving around. Kim's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
She's fantastic.
Hi, Kim Marks. If you have the internet out wherever you are and you see this.
Yeah, totally. We love you. We should have you on.
There you go. Yeah, couldn't be a
Uh, okay, so you know all these artists. Who are your top five
Ooh,
right now, or just who's
I, I mean, a lot. I have a lot of artists who are my
five?
top
Five.
five.
You can't have a lot. You can't have a lot in your top five.
I know, right? Well, I'll say Mick. Mick's definitely
Yeah, of course.
he gets to be one of my top five for sure, forever. Um, like Henning, I think Henning is one of my top five. Uh, I like Dean Sacred's work.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
Dean Sacred, I would put in there. I wish you could see more of his stuff online. He doesn't. He's a
I
lot
have
of the
a
guys. A lot of my favorite tattooers don't really post their work. He's one of those guys. I don't think he
Yeah.
posts that much. You know,
I have a dragon print of
Marco.
his. I'll send it to you.
Oh yeah,
It's
sweet.
huge.
Yeah,
You can't see it. Yeah,
yeah. He's badass, man. I think he's such a good tattoo. Like I just love it. Everything he does.
Yeah. I was just hanging out at Shane Ford's shop, Elsewhere Tattoo the other day, with Shay Motts for Julia getting tattooed, and he has a bunch of Dean Sacred prints everywhere. I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
what? Like that guy's so good, so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, yeah. I'd love to see more of his work. You know.
Yeah.
Um,
that's three.
maybe maybe like Marco Serio.
Oh yeah,
Ooh,
Yeah,
yes.
Marco
love his stuff.
Serio. He's like every single time I see one of his tattoos, I'm just blown away.
Yep.
Um, wow, there's a lot. It's,
Oh, there's only one more.
I know. So who do I get to say, right? Fuck, I don't know. Horitomo,
Oritomo. There we go.
Horitomo, Cristavino.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know.
great. That's a
Yeah.
great top
Yeah,
five.
yeah. Yeah,
I think you're
Nice.
the first one not to mention Stace Ferrand,
Yeah.
Water Street
Yeah.
Phantom,
Or
or
Steve
Steve
Moore.
Moore. Yeah.
Yeah.
well, they're both dope. I mean, I could.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
no,
Oh,
but
do you see that back piece that he posted today, Stace?
No.
no,
I've
I
got it on
haven't looked
Instagram.
at. I haven't looked
Yeah.
at it. Haven't looked
Look at it
today,
before you go to
but
bed, so you can go to bed sad.
Oh no.
It's so fucking good.
Oh man.
Oh,
Burrito at the
yes,
studio, he's got a back piece on the go from Stace, and it's
is
Quan
it?
Yin in his style. It's so sick.
It's wild, isn't it? Such a
Yeah.
wild back piece. Has he gone for a sitting recently?
No, because Stace is in Santa Fe now, and been
I
trying to
think
talk him into coming back
he
up.
was
But
just in Calgary not long ago, wasn't he? I think.
last
yeah,
week, yeah,
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, there we
yeah,
go.
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I would really like to collect a tattoo from him. That's
Same.
I was supposed to get some work by him,
yeah.
and I just put it off and put it off, and then it's like moving to Santa Fe. I'm like,
Yeah.
Santa
wow.
Fe. Well, now you got to go to Santa Fe. It gives you a reason to
Now
travel. You know,
tattoos
that's
hurt too
another.
much now. Tattoos hurt too much now in my old age to travel that far to get them.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'm
You got to sit.
I
I'm
got tattooed the other day by Ryan Gagne, and I'm like dying.
On your arm.
But then I
Like,
went and
shit's
did
easy.
jujitsu. I went and did jujitsu like an idiot, and people were grabbing it and pulling on it.
Of course.
Yeah, so whatever.
That'll heal shitty.
No, I don't think a Ryan Gagne tattoo can heal shitty. Honestly,
My God. No, of course not.
yeah. Fuck.
Tell me his breath stank at least.
No, no. His attitude did. No.
Oh, amazing.
No. Yeah.
John, thanks so much for putting up with us and finally getting a fucking episode together.
Yeah, thanks
Uh,
for having me. Yeah.
Yeah.
If anyone
It
gets
worked out. I was so tired today after work. I was like, "Fuck it, we gotta do this.
oh man,
It's gotta happen. We're not
Yeah.
gonna. Yeah,
if
it's
any,
not
if
gonna.
you get a chance, anyone listening, and you're in his area in Canmore, go visit. It's a great shop. It's fucking beautiful. There's art floor to ceiling, wall to wall. It's an inspiring studio, and Don's a great guy.
Hey, any conventions?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, for sure. I'm going
Kelowna.
to do Kelowna. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm
Awesome.
doing
See you
Kelowna,
there.
and I'm doing Winnipeg.
Okay.
Nice.
Um,
Awesome. Great.
so so I'll be in Winnipeg in August and Kelowna in a couple of weeks, I guess. Like
Yeah.
not
Ooh,
that
like
far
a
away.
month.
Like Kelowna,
Yeah.
a month. Yeah,
Yeah.
a month.
Month.
I
Yeah.
go to Toronto. I'm actually going to go to Ontario and work with Anthony Orsatti
Oh no
next
way.
week. Yeah,
Oh
we
yeah. He
live
used to
right
work
by
at your shop.
my
Yeah.
parents. Yeah. I mean, we used to stay up like until the sun came up painting in the garage. He lived just downstairs, and
Yeah. Yeah.
then we.
He's in Midland,
Cool.
Ontario. Yeah.
He's in
Pe-
Penetang.
Penetanguishene. Yeah.
Yeah, which is more or less Midland, same
Yeah. Same town,
same.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, cool.
Very cool. All right. Well, we'll see you in Kelowna.
Yeah, dude.
See you in Kelowna. Yeah.
Awesome. We'll
Thank,
talk then.
yeah. Have a good